everyone. Welcome to the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast. We're happy you're here. On the podcast, we're certain that you'll relate to the caregiver stories and find comfort with your honorary sisters. Now, before we start, I want to remind you to go to our website, confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com, and sign up for our newsletter. It's full of useful information that you can immediately use. Now, let's learn more about today's guest. Well, good morning, sister.
Well, good morning, sister. I feel like we're on like a Catholic show. Good morning, sister.
This is not Catholic. If it was, we'd have to go to confession. Oh, we are doing confessions. Okay, that's fantastic. I'm just so glad we cracked ourselves up this morning. Seriously, Jay, we should probably do a show.
You know what? We're here. I brush my teeth. We might as well.
Oh, that's so sweet. You brush your teeth. No one even knows on the podcast.
I know.
They would never know.
I wanted to share. It's a highlight, you know.
You know what? We have two amazing people with us today. Not one,
but two. Yeah.
And it's not often, it's like a 2-for-1.
Yeah.
Like, it's awesome. Not often I don't know that we've ever had a husband and wife come on the show to talk about their caregiving experience. And this one's special because I met Pam and Mike at an event called Hoot and Holler, which is storytelling in Roanoke. And Pam shared the story of their son, who we're going to talk about today. And it was, and their son's name is Jason, clearly a wonderful name. But I am so excited to get to hear about them, to have them share their story with everybody, all of our besties.
Yeah, because I think it's really going to impact a lot of people.
It's so
Pam,
good. It's so
thank you guys for being here. So I'm going to give a little precursor because I really want them to tell the story. Okay?
Oh, yes.
So December 10th, 2005, Pam and Mike, their typical American family, just living in Maryland. They have a son in the Army and a daughter in the 8th grade. Mike is working full-time as a systems engineer, and Pam is a payroll manager. Just good American family, I think.
Just doing a normal day job.
That's exactly right. Then they received a call on December the 11th of 2005. Their son, Jason, was severely injured in an IED blast in Baghdad, Iraq. Jason suffered a traumatic brain injury, 2nd and 3rd degree burns to 60% of his body, multiple leg fractures, which led to a lower leg amputation. Now, this is their story. It is 17 years in the making now, and it includes something that I really appreciated. It includes advice taken from a surgeon in the very early days. And she told them, don't let anyone tell you he's as good as he's going to get. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. Today, Pam and Mike are caregivers. They are fierce advocates. They are parents. And in 2020, they became grandparents, and they are heroes as well. Pam and Mike, thank you guys so much for being here. We are honored to have you. And we know that your story is not one that's told frequently enough because we have so many heroes out there that have been injured and hurt. And you guys take such good care of them. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So you guys are your family is, just a regular family like ours, just living in Maryland. And your journey started just one Sunday morning.
Yes, I think that, when they say your life changes in a minute, it changed with a phone call. Everything was normal up until that phone call. And in that moment, everything about our future changed. Initially we didn't know, you're just numb from the news and you don't know what your next steps are. You just take it day by day. And honestly, we may not take it exactly day by day 17 years later, but it's pretty darn close to the same process of just living in the moment, putting we're at the place where we can put goals in place for where we want to be, but knowing that life is all about flexibility and you just have to roll with the punches.
Yeah. So Jason, I know of course, he was overseas. It took how long to get him back? Because he eventually made it to Texas. And that's where his care was for 10 months.
Generally, what they'll do is he goes to a field hospital first where they try to stabilize him in order to fly him to Landstuhl, Germany, to the hospital there. And typically they will try to fly the family there to be with them. But Jason was so critical because of the burns, first and foremost, that they didn't want us to fly over there when they were trying to get him back to the States. They didn't want us to cross in the air. So, but come to find out, that's when they discovered his brain injury. His brain started to swell when he got to Landstuhl. So it took him about a week to get him stabilized enough to even make the trip back to Texas. So he was in a coma for 3 months. And he spent those 3 months at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio in the intensive care unit, where that's where he went through the amputation. That's where he went through the skin grafting, multiple skin grafts. He probably went through about 30 different procedures in that 3-month period. And then they transferred him to the Richmond VA, their polytrauma center, for rehabilitation for the brain injury as well. And that we spent 7 months there.
Wow.
So you guys how's that working with, are you guys going back and forth?
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. Like
you're working,
you live in Virginia.
You were in Maryland at the time.
Well, Maryland at the time, right?
Yeah.
We both had really good employers who helped us navigate all that by donating some miles for airplane tickets. We were flying back and forth to Texas. One of us would take a week on and one would take a week off, and the week off being at home with our daughter.
Yeah.
You had a daughter, so you didn't just have Jason.
Oh, yeah.
Child.
Yeah. By the way.
Now, I know Jason was 19 when this happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was new into the military. I would assume did he enlist at 18? Did he go into 18 or was it 19?
He went in at 18. In fact, he enlisted on election day in 2004. That's how we remember the day he did. And he's, went through basic training, got out of basic training at the end of February, beginning of March. By August, he was already in, I
forgot where he went.
Kuwait, because they try to prepare you for the heat and stuff in Kuwait. And then he was in Baghdad 2 weeks later and in September, and then he was injured in December. So it was a very short deployment for him, but he was very young. And honestly, the doctors felt that a lot of his survival was credited towards his young age.
Wow. So you guys were in Maryland. So you had flexible employers who were working with you guys as far as your work schedule. And how old was your daughter?
She had just started the 9th grade. And so she was acclimating to that change. She has a little bit of anxiety herself. And we didn't even realize at the very beginning, we were so focused on Jason. We spent the first month with Jason together. And then after he got stabilized and we knew he would make it through, we started switching every other week so that we could be with her 1 week. Our employers let us work remotely on the weeks we were with Jason.
Wow.
And that was back before.
I was getting ready to say that's 2004.
There was no work from home back then.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
So they were really, really flexible with us, and that helped us tremendously. But then we also found out in the process that our daughter was struggling, with going back and forth. It literally took her 6 months before she could see him.
Oh,
so,
wow.
think about, so the Army flies us to San Antonio. Brooke Army Medical Center is a burn hospital. What we didn't know was what we were going to walk into, and we took her with us.
Oh.
And we walk in, and I mean, the patients there they let them out of the rooms because they want them moving around.
Yeah.
They're sucking on their morphine pops because of the pain and stuff.
Yeah.
And all that, she just needed to see that. She couldn't even go in his room. So by the time we got to Richmond, the nurses started working with her. She would get as far as the hallway, on one visit. Then they would put a chair just at the opposite end of his room, and she'd kind of go in and sit in the chair.
Gosh.
And then, so it took her quite a while to actually get to the point of being able to see him.
Oh, wow.
That hurts my heart. Like, oh my God, Jay, I'm going to have to get the Kleenex out.
Oh
This
my
2 days in a
gosh.
row. And so when you all went to San Antonio, where did you stay?
We stayed at the Fisher House that was on the base.
And that's what I had. I had a feeling that you did. I just met our friends at the Fisher House, Michelle and Mary, and I had never heard of it before. And they're going to be on as part of November, recognizing, because the Fisher House is a place for families to stay when their loved ones who are in the military are receiving services or hospitalized. And so I had a feeling that you might have stayed there, because that's a long time. I mean, I think about the expenses that are associated with having to go back and forth, because y'all are trying to work. You are trying to support your daughter, who is young. She's in the ninth grade. And, we all know what it goes from middle school to high school too. There's a lot of pressure there. And then, paying bills. I mean,
we had to work.
Keep living.
We had to work. We had to eat.
and then worried about your son. And I think that would be a lot of pressure. What was it like for you two as a couple?
I was wondering about that, because you two are passing each other week by week. So how long have you guys been married? I always want to ask that.
Oh, that's a good one.
33 years.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
So yes. So Friday was the day, we would, our neighbor volunteered to take Carrie in every Friday. Carrie's our daughter. Every Friday night. She spent the night with our neighbor, and that neighbor was wonderful, taught her how to quilt, got things entered from the fair, just really, spent a lot of time one-on-one with her.
Yeah.
And so we would either fly to San Antonio or take the train down to Richmond. We'd be together on Friday night, and then the other person would come home on Saturday morning and then spend the week with Carrie.
Wow.
So you had caregivers for the caregivers. You had, it sounds like a whole team of people.
Yeah,
because I'm thinking, she's going to school. You're not pulling her out of school.
So they told us early on that it takes a village, and it does. It takes a village. Yeah. And I have referenced Jason's village as being the size of New York City, because there is absolutely no way that we could have done this by ourselves. Number one, we didn't know the military. We were not a military family. We didn't know the ins and outs of the military. We also, at that time, had never had anybody that was had gone through anything medically traumatic, nothing major. People having babies, that was about it. So we didn't even really know the healthcare system that well either. So us being a team, we kind of fell into this. You fall into your strength. So I would be with Jason, and Mike would be the one that was running around the hospital, figuring out what we needed to do, next with the VA or with the with the Army. Just briefly, it's like, when Jason was being treated for his burns, the way they treat them is his room was about 90 degrees because they did not want his body burning calories to keep it warm. They wanted it to burn the calories to repair the injuries. So it would be at least 90 degrees in his room, and we would have to be fully gowned up, when we went in to see him. And every time he had grafting, they would put heat lamps on him on top of the 90 degrees. And Mike could come around the corner and go, I can't go in. I just can't handle the heat. We could only visit for, up to an hour, because we would start to dehydrate. So they make you come out and cool off and drink and stuff like that. So we kind of fell into this. I could handle the heat better than he could. So he would, meet with liaisons. That's how we got introduced to the Wounded Warrior Project.
Yeah. Okay.
He just made all these connections at the hospital while I took care of the, because they're like, you need to get Jason out of this coma. You need to keep talking to him, that kind of stuff. So I did that part. And he would bounce in it every now and again when he could handle the heat. So
I like that though, because you're
Yeah.
tag teaming.
Yeah.
I think that's
Exactly.
like, it's so hard. And we've talked to so many caregivers because there's the thing is that regardless of who you're caring for in the situation, whether military or family or husband or our mom or whatever, it always typically starts in a crisis. But a lot of people are very alone in it. And the fact that you all had each other to be able to, and that's why the sisters and I work so well for our mom. It does take a village, and our aunts and our uncles and everybody else we employ. We actually draft everybody into our village.
Well, you talk about sisters, and I've got to share this one story about sisters and Jason coming out of the coma. So he's in Richmond, and they encourage you to do a lot of talking because, they don't know if a person in a coma can hear you. They suspect they can and all that kind of stuff. So my two sisters were visiting, and we were in his room, and we just were cutting up, we were telling
Like sisters
stories.
do.
Absolutely, telling stories and laughing and stuff. And all of a sudden, Jason started to laugh. And the nurse said it was appropriate laughter. And that was really a huge deal as opposed to just a hysteria kind of laughter.
Yeah.
They had warned us that people coming out of comas are usually combative. They're, angry. They're lashing out. Jason was laughing. He started laughing at our jokes. And the hospital was just amazed, but that was the sister thing,
Wow. Well, clearly it brought him comfort, and he wanted to get in a little bit on it.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Pam, how long was he in the coma? When did they bring him out of the coma? When did he come out of the coma?
He was in the coma about 3 months, and then he kind of progressed to like a persistent vegetative state. Mm-hmm. And I think he kind of started snapping out of it. The Air Force came in and flew us from San Antonio to Richmond, and getting him out of the hospital on that flight, his eyes started tracking. I think that stimulation got him started. And then when he got back in the hospital in Richmond, he kind of slowed down. But then when people would come and visit, family, his unit from Iraq, guys from the unit in Iraq came and visited. And all of that, I think the stimulation of that is what started bringing him around.
Wow. So during this, sorry, Natalie and I are like interrupting Kat. That's what she says. So we talk about this is where he is, but where are you guys at? Because this is and I say this because I know how my stepkids are. They're my babies. And so, and they're 37, so they're still little. But where are you guys at? I mean, where are you? Where are your hearts? Are you like in survival mode? But when you look at them, do you have those moments where is your break moment? Like, have you broken? Do you have those moments when you just don't know if you're going to make it, or how are you feeling?
Well, no, for me, when you first started talking about Pam and I's story, and I just start reflecting on all the things that we've been through, and I start to tear up. I think about Jason and his life and what he's missed out on and how it affected our lives. But I think we're okay with where we ended up at. I'm good with where we are.
There's a couple. We did have some rough moments trying to establish our new normal and working full time, getting Carrie through school, when we brought Jason home, we still had a lot of wound care to do, getting the right people in place to help us. There were moments that were like, can we do this? But then we're like, but what's the alternative? Yeah. And we look at it too that, people are like, oh, I don't know how you can do it. And, our position is, how can we not do it?
Yeah.
Number one. And that there are people out there that are worse off. I mean, there is worse out there. And we look at it and we're like, things might be a little bit strained for us, but then what is Jason going through?
Yeah.
Our lives have been altered, but his has been completely shut down as far as what he thought his future would be like.
Yeah.
So
sorry, Gayla, go ahead.
Yeah. So you guys bring him home. And that's because it's almost like you have these inflection points. Like you get the phone call change. You see him for the first time, that's the expectation. And then you get in these, because I think about how like, it's not the same, but how like as Jason and I had, like, we get the diagnosis, we go and get the first biopsy,
Right.
we go and then I totally respect your new normal, because we're a year out of his cancer. We're still figuring out normal. And I think it's how do you, because your roles have changed at this point. So yes, you're Jason's parents, but you're Jason's people. Like you're his primary caregiver. And I've talked about this. It's being able to, for me, it's hard as a caregiver and a wife to embrace both of those things. And how do they both be true at the same time? How do I internalize that? And so you bring him home, and then kind of what? Then how does that
and I think one of those moments was the decision to bring him home.
Okay.
Because at the end of the 10 months, the doctors are like, we're going to need to move him to long-term care. So they were, it was early into the whole war process, so they were setting up a polytrauma 2 center, in DC at the VA there. And that's where they suggested moving him, because we were in that area. Yeah. And they suggested we go visit. And the people at the VA in DC were awesome. They gave us a tour. They showed us where his room would be. They went over their programs. They were awesome. We left there, and that was the second time since he was injured that I broke down, because it's long-term care, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. But Jason at that time was 20 years old.
Yeah.
And, the next youngest person there might have been
60 or so,
75, 80 years old. Yeah. And he has a brain injury. He needed to be stimulated. That was not going to be a 20-year-old's stimulation.
No.
So the VA was wonderful. They're like, fine, we don't have to send him there. If you want to take him home, this is what we'll do. I mean, they set us up completely at home, home health aid, that type of stuff. There's some challenge, so every piece of equipment we need was provided. Somebody came in and looked at the house, recommended stuff. We got a home health aid for 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, which, it was not going to be enough.
I was starting to say, I'm like, that seems kind of low.
Yeah. And now we're down to 3 because that's what the policy is. Yeah. So the policy is only like 15 hours a week, which drives his case manager crazy, because his alternative is long-term care, which is 24/7.
That doesn't even closely. There's 156 hours in a week, by the way. Yes. I know this because I worked residential, and I'm like 156 versus 20.
We
Not
get
really
15.
Close.
So we get 15. So we did a lot of out of pocket, and then with our relationship with Wounded Warrior Projects evolved. They now are providing somebody here 6 hours a day, in addition to the VA's 3 hours a day. So we're covered. We have people helping us 9 hours a day, Monday through Friday.
Wow.
And I think that we need to call that out. I know, Mike, that you have worked with you took on with the Summit for the Wounded Warrior Project, but what an amazing organization that is. And for them to be able to give you to do that 6 hours a day. That's just
I don't know where we'd be without them.
I mean, they certainly listen to what the needs are and drives what they do.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff you can't. It's just like a mountain. You can't climb out from underneath of it. There's just so much stuff going on, and you need a break in your day every day. It just wears on you. And it's not that we don't love Jason any less than we ever did. It just changes your outlook on things, and it really makes it hard. So it's good to have some me time, some us time, some time to be able to get away and collect your own thoughts.
And Jason doesn't want to be with his parents 24/7.
I like that. I like that point of view.
Why he doesn't?
Wait a minute.
We have a little camera up there so that if I'm out in the garden, I can hear him, or see him. And he told me it was an invasion of his privacy. Well, pardon me, but if you want to be alone, I got to be able to hear you in case there's any issues.
I like
do
that.
you still get that level of support for Jason between the 9 hours total between the VA benefit and Wounded Warrior? And that's been going on. So you had more hours up front, and Wounded Warrior supplemented that, supplemented. So for 17 years, you have had individuals in your home, because I know Jason lives with you. For 17 years, you've had extra people, extra bodies besides your children.
We have an extended family like none other. Yes,
so
we do.
That's interesting, because I think for a lot of people, they'd be like, whoa, how do you do that? And I want to make sure this is clear. Wanting to have time to yourself to even remember who you are doesn't negate the love that you have for the person you're caring for.
The first time Mike and I went on vacation, and I don't know how many years we were into it, Mike's like, we need to take vacation. I'm like, you're nuts. Well, how are we gonna, how are we gonna leave? How am I gonna enjoy myself? But he's like, we need to do this. And Mike was the one that kind of pushed it. And I think it started out when we did a mom's caregiver summit with Wounded Warrior Project, and then a dad separately. And we were like,
wow.
It was stressful getting ready to get there. Once we were there, it was amazing how much you didn't realize you needed that break. So after we did those separately, we decided, maybe now's time to take a vacation. Maybe it's even short. And we found that, and again, getting ready to go, making sure everything's in place for Jason before we go, making sure it's a week where we don't have doctor's appointments and stuff like that. But once we got there, we enjoyed it so much. And when we got home, we found out Jason had enjoyed it so much,
That was my question. Did Jason enjoy you all being gone?
Yeah, maybe a little too much. No, but he definitely did. It was good for him. It was good for us. So we're at a place right now where we try to, each year, we try to do something with Jason away from the house. He's got a service dog now. So we got our service dog through Smoky Mountain Service Dogs, which is in Tennessee. So we go back every year to take her back to visit her people and do their annual charity event and do our public access test and all that. That gets him out. We've done skiing with him with Wounded Warrior Project in Aspen and Vail and done. And then we do a vacation with our daughter and her husband and grandson. We're going to Disney World this year.
Oh, God bless you. Yeah. You're going to need a second vacation, because trust me, we've done Disney. Yeah. It's like Satan's playground. I can tell you right now, like, holy cow, there's a lot of walking and a lot of people and a lot of children.
Yes. And then Mike and I will do something by ourselves, which we're still trying to work that in. So, so we try to do something with each of us, each group, I
love that.
But I think the important part is to not feel guilty about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time to get to that point, then you have to, Jason's good with it. Our daughter's okay if we go and do something with Jason, and we're good going with her. And it makes for a more enjoyable time. Yeah. You're not sweating and worrying about, what am I doing?
And it's important to have the right people in place to take care of Jason. I mean, we've come across the number of people. I'm currently going through it with my dad who needed a home health aide, but they didn't want someone coming into their house. They were nervous about having somebody come to there. And my argument to them is, we've been doing it for 17 years. Our door is like a revolving door. I mean, we've got so many people in and out, and we've never, ever had a problem. I mean, it takes a little while to gain that trust. Once you understand that these people are here to help you, not to hurt you, then you just have to get over that hump of feeling that way. And then it's like, here, let me show you where I keep the key,
Here's the code.
Yeah, exactly.
I left cookies on the counter.
Yes.
Right.
America is the land of the free because of the brave. Norwegian Cruise Line never takes that for granted and is proud to support our troops with a discount program for members of the U.S. military, veterans, reservists, and their spouses. Service members get 10% off their cruise fare, where they'll be met with exclusive onboard experiences as a token of appreciation. NCL's Military Appreciation Program was created for veterans by veterans. Learn more about their military discount and program at ncl.com/military. That's ncl.com/military.
I have a question, and it goes back to the surgeon in the very beginning who said, don't let anyone tell you he's as good as he's going to get. Because I know has been a big part of the 17 years with you all, of kind of no, he can't have any additional services. And that's what comes into advocates. You guys always that you are like the advocates. No, we are getting more because he is young and he has a life and we're not stopping. Tell me about that. Tell me about some of the progress, how you guys have gone through that.
Well, the textbook, and Jason has gone against every textbook, anything, even learning. He had to relearn to swallow and speak. And we're still working on trying to balance and walk. And, the first trauma surgeon said, because of the brain injury, don't let people tell you that he's going to plateau, or he's as good as he's going to get, because every brain injury is different. Right. Every person is different. And you got to remember, he was 19 when he was injured. We did not know at the time, but we learned your brain continues to develop. Your bones continue to develop. Yep. Well into your late 20s. And sure enough, about 2 years in, they're like, well, PT wasn't meant to be a permanent thing. We just show you how to do it. Well, I'm not a physical therapist. I don't want to be a physical therapist. And he's making progress. So the physical therapist continued to say he was making progress, continued to want to work with him. But then we started hitting the brick walls but this is, his progress is going to start to slow. So then we're like, no. And his doctors have always been thinking outside the box. We've had a really good group of doctors. And so it's really just the bureaucracy. One of his doctors said he had to go to the central office because they're like, well, how long is this going to go on? And the doctor's like, it's not coming out of your pocket. So, he's like, he goes, you would think that they were writing a personal check for this or something, So the doctors would help advocate. He has a doctor up in Baltimore right now that, it has been focused on blast injuries, which has been good. And they completely watching Jason, now that we're 17 years into it, a lot of them have a different outlook on brain injury recovery as well. Sure. And like his doctor right now is like, you've got to find things that interest him because that's where he's making his progress. If he went skiing in Vail, when he came back, the doctor's like, he would bump up to the next level. And they're like, what did you do? And it's like, he just did something that challenged him, that he enjoyed. It bumped him up to the next level. So he's still making progress. Is he making leaps and bounds progress? No, but he is right now. He's working with a personal trainer because they stopped physical therapy. So Wounded Warrior Project is paying for the personal trainer. Wow. He's got him, and I know it doesn't sound like a lot for us. It's a huge milestone. He has him walking around the gym 5 times, just holding on to the personal trainer. And he has him balancing by himself with nobody holding him for 15 seconds at a time. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but these are things that, early on, they're like, oh, he's never going to do. And it's like, don't ever tell me never. And I had a doctor once ask me, well, what's your goal exactly? And I said, my goal is that you give him back to me the same way I gave him to you. And until we hit that goal, we're going to keep working.
It's so interesting because I know TRICARE is insurance for the military. Yes. It's and they've said this is not only for him, and he's military, but our mom with Parkinson's, they cut off therapies, the occupational physical therapy. She still gets speech therapy, but there's certain things they get to that point. They say there's no longer therapeutic value. They're not making progress. And I think redefining what progress is if you're maintaining and you're not regressing, that's progress, considering the severity and the complexity of the injuries and the illness. And you're also, I think about like, gosh, you're killing so many birds with one stone, respectfully, like getting him engaged with out in the community, having a personal trainer does so much for his stimulation. It does muscle for his building his muscles, because I think about holding himself up because he also does equine therapy.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, so Jason does, like, if for our folks, we haven't talked about different kinds of therapies, but how did you guys kind of as advocates, as caregivers, as his team, Jason's team, care team, how did you navigate what therapies should be done? Were you doing research on the side? Because I feel like you guys are researchers too. How did you navigate that as part of the care team?
Well, at first, he was so severely injured. And the VA threw all this therapy at him, the occupational, the speech, the physical. I would say that, and I'm thinking of Tom, the speech therapist, they started thinking outside the box,
Okay.
And the stuff they learned from working with Jason, they started incorporating with some of their other patients as well, because they were seeing that. And again, that's why we try to keep our story out there, because the feedback you get is like, maybe somebody's doing something and it's working for them, and I would like to try it, and vice versa, that kind of stuff. So at the beginning, there was a lot of that. And then and we were so busy, it wasn't, I needed things given to me, not me going out and trying to research it, because I'm working full time. I'm doing wound care that at least takes an hour a day, then we're, doing the, then just navigating. I'm his fiduciary. So I've got to do all of his paperwork. I've got to do the doctor's appointments, all that kind of stuff. So it was a lot. So it was like, I didn't have a lot of time to, and initially I was surviving on about 4 hours of sleep a night, trying to get everything done. Our daughter rode horses. And the closest place to us was a therapeutic riding place. And she just took lessons because they did lessons for anybody. And so we knew about it. They knew about Jason, and they're like, we could probably help him. And we're like, he's not even sitting up right now. I don't think so, but they're like, no, really, trust us, So we're willing, and I think really, for the most part, we're willing to try. And I said the only restrictions we put around it is that it needs to be legal. It needs to not injure him worse than he's already injured. So, and he's got to want to do it. So
low threshold, I like that. Not illegal, although questionable if it's legal in Europe. Because Europe is pretty progressive. Exactly.
So we took him, and the first person we had that would stay with him during the day was a very big guy.
Yeah.
So we take him to the therapeutic riding place, and Jerome literally could just pick him up and place him, so put him on the horse. Jason couldn't sit up. He was a blob. He was just a piece of clay on the back of the horse.
So how far is this? He goes into therapeutic riding. How far into his injury or his recovery is he? Is it a year? Is it 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
It was probably 3 years.
Okay.
I would say about 3.
Yeah. So that gives people perspective.
Yeah. He's sitting in a wheelchair, but he's not sitting independently at that point.
Got it. So
they put him on the back of this horse. And then they've got people on both sides of him holding him. And then they have somebody just walking him around. And I mean, looks like Humpty Dumpty, man. He is just curled over on himself. He's almost looks like he's in the fetal position. And he started out that way. And I rode horses in high school, so I know that it exercises every muscle in your body. It does. It really does. So I at least had that background. So knowing that, and I would say that, so right now, he actually got classified for Paralympics, for the para equestrian.
No way.
He can ride. they put his sidewalkers now in the center of the ring, and he can walk the horse around by himself. So the trainer is working on him in dressage. You walk to certain letters. And so again, you have to remember this. So he's memorized the letters, which is amazing by itself. And so his trainer just has to tell him what letter to go to. But he's sitting up and we're like, whoa,
pretty amazing.
The fact that he could sit. So between his personal trainer working on balance and the trainers with the horse working on balance, we're slowly getting there, but
Well, and you think about benefits. Now that's where, as a taxpayer, like think about it. We pay taxes and he absolutely deserves everything. As a taxpayer, I'm like, man, finally we're spending our money on the good stuff.
No, Wounded Warrior Project's paying
exactly. And so that tells you something right there. So Jay, we are totally going to connect with Wounded Warrior.
Exactly.
They're going to be our besties. Okay. Because I feel like people need to know about them and the great work that they're doing. But let me ask you this, because I know I'm getting close on time. During this whole time, as you think back over your last 17 years, you guys are both working still, right? Working full time. So when did you decide to stop working? Because I heard you say 3 years in, you're still working and you're navigating and you're 60% of the 53 million unpaid caregivers. You are six. I am too.
Well, Mike's parents passed away in 2014 and 15, and it was necessary for him to move down to Southwestern Virginia, and his brother and him take care of a lot of estate stuff. I was very nervous because we had a lot. Everybody was in place in Maryland, and we were in the Baltimore, Washington area, and I'm like, am I going to find people in Southwest Virginia?
Tribe.
So I was really nervous. Yeah. And I will say that of all of us, Jason's probably benefited the most out of the move.
Really?
Absolutely. Yep.
So he transitioned, because I know that, because we talked about a question, because that's where from Hoot and Holler, and you had shared in your original story that he's connected to the therapeutic riding here in the Valley, because we don't live, we're neck of the woods kind of neighbors, because you're in the area with me. And so that's very interesting. So you guys have lived in Southwest Virginia since 2015? 2016.
Yep.
And so he's continued to thrive, because we do have a VA in Salem in Southwest.
They're wonderful. He's got a wonderful case manager, wonderful management through there. They did pick up physical therapy when we moved, just because he was new to the area. They've since stopped it. They've since stopped it. And, we connected with Healing Strides, Wounded Warrior projects, like we'll find people, down in your area to help, so between Healing Strides and Wounded Warrior Project and the Salem VA, to be honest, it's really, we've been, even in Southwest Virginia, they have a place called the Brain Injury Institute of Southwest Virginia for brain injury. And we just didn't have those connections up in the Baltimore, Washington area, It's just, with as much going on up there. I don't know if it's too much going on up there and it's just too many people, but down here, it's been, I
think, part of it may be the pace of life down here. And, I'm not saying that people in other places don't care about helping other people, but I think we've really found some passionate people that Jason relates to.
I love that.
It's like an extended family now, and that things are really clicking. He's, doing really well. Like Pam said, probably out of all of us, he's benefited the most.
That's great.
In a good spot.
I love to hear that. That also warms my heart, but we're real Southern and Southwest. And so we don't know a stranger. So how are you two doing today? How, as caregivers, and you, like I said, kind of living, your parents and caregivers for Jason and advocates and everything else. You wear 40 hats. You don't just get to be parents anymore. You get to be lots of things for Jason. But how are you guys? How's your relationship? I know you talk about vacations, which I think is a blessing. You've gotten into your routine. You all feel like, hey, I've gotten in my routine, and your daughter and finding that new normal. How does that feel for you?
Well, when we moved here in 2016 is when we stopped working,
Okay.
paying jobs. Mike loves it because he's back in Southwest Virginia
Oh, I like it
and
here.
he's working out in the yard all the time.
Yep, I'm an outdoors person, so I love working in the yard. And we've got a large yard. It takes a lot of time, but
And I think for me, moving here was a little bit of an adjustment just because I don't have as many options for my,
Well, it's hard to find good shopping.
there you go.
Exactly.
So,
I think we all know that.
yes, but
There's
we
no
have to go
Costco.
back to Baltimore a couple times a year for Jason's doctor's appointment. So we cram a lot of stuff.
Oh, I
into that
support
trip,
you. I support that.
Yeah, so, but it's nice. I like the pace, down here. I like the fact that the stuff I was working on at night for Jason, the paperwork and all that, I can do during the day now because we have those people that are helping us during the day.
Yeah.
And I don't have to go to work. I still have a thing on my desk that says chaos coordinator. And that's,
Ooh.
that is still a very big thing. I don't think yes, it's not. But we made some, like for Jason, we're like, we're gonna go down here. I know he has a boat now, so we go out on the lake, in fact, go on Thursday,
I love that.
Yeah, so he's got a pontoon boat, so we can just roll him right onto it. And we enjoy it too. I said it had to have enough benches there so I could lay out in the sun, while we're tooling around the lake. And then, we have our grandson now. And when my daughter went to Virginia Tech and ended up meeting her husband there, stayed down here. So we're close to her now too. So it all worked out.
Oh, I love that.
It did work out. So
it's interesting the way that we're faithful individuals. It's for me, for you, it's interesting the path that God took you and has taken Jason.
Yeah.
And all the trials and all the things that you've done, because I think because of this, some of the silver lining is some of the advocacy work that you guys have done has been impacted other people. Just you sharing your story alone will impact other people. Just the resources that you're talking about, or I would have never thought about putting my loved one on a horse. Like most people don't think, in a wheelchair, I should put them on a horse.
Yep.
And I think that's so important. I think that's so important. And that you can not only survive, but it sounds like you guys are thriving.
Well, we would have never met the people that we've met if we hadn't been on this journey,
Yeah.
And we would have met other people and we would have been, we've truly met a lot of inspiring people and talk about putting your faith in humanity. I mean, there's so many people that want to help. And, the other thing we had to learn is you have to let them because it makes them feel good too.
Yeah, it does.
And so let them, don't act like I can do it. Because in the end, you really can't. You do need that break.
Yeah.
So if someone offers something and it's something that, you would help them. That's a lot of our family has done things because they felt like they needed to do something. So just let them do anything,
And that's true. Yeah. That is 100% true. All right. So I'm going to transition us real quick because we've got a handful of minutes left and this is our favorite part. And this is this is so good. Thank you for, it's made my heart feel so good today. You filled my emotional bucket. JJ, it's time for sister questions. What questions do you have for?
So I have a comment first, and that is you said something, Pam, that was you have met a lot of inspiring people, but you guys you have inspired me, like Natalie said, the things that you brought to us today and the things I can take away with dealing with my mom who has Parkinson's. It's not just about the military or it's not just about traumatic brain injuries, but it's about so much more. And you guys in your tribe, I'm just like, I got to increase my tribe. So that was my first thing.
Yes.
But I love a lighthearted question. So you talked about Jason and how exciting it was when he's walking around the gym or he's up for 15 seconds. Tell me about a favorite moment because I know there have been milestones. So tell me about a woohoo, you can almost do a cartwheel, a favorite moment of progress.
I think for me, it was watching him ride the horse without any people on the sides. Okay. Just to see him sit up. I mean, he's always bent over and hunched over in his wheelchair or whatever. And you see him sitting up straight on the horse. He's it was inspiring for me. I was very proud of him.
Yeah.
Well, so Mike plays in a band. So usually one night on the weekend, he's gone. And so I have to get Jason to bed by myself.
Yeah.
And, we started with the whole Hoya lift and lifting him and stuff like that. So we are at the point now where using a walker, Jason can stand it just with me being his spotter. But the aha moment was, so he has a service dog. And when we first started doing it by ourselves, Jason and I would get a little loud, maybe, and I'd be like, what are you doing? You're going to fall, and the dog would run out. She would leave, And so my aha moment was, I got him in bed and Jason and I looked over and the dog was still there. We're like, we're doing this. We're doing this.
Yep.
I love that. Okay. So here is the last question. All right. First thought that comes to your mind. What is your favorite guilty pleasure? The one thing you love to do for yourself. Pam, Mike, separately.
My guilty pleasures. I like to go get my nails done because I don't have to do anything because my hands are busy.
Okay. Getting your nails done. I like that. Mike?
I like being outside working, just playing in the yard or something like that.
Oh,
That's my place.
I love that. I love that. I can't thank you guys enough for coming on, sharing your story and giving so much of yourselves and giving so much of it. It's so good. It warms your heart. I'm going to give a shout out to, says I jotted down some of the places, Wounded Warrior Project, Fisher House, and you can find them at fisherhouse.org. We're working with them. Healing Strides, Therapeutic Writing. Also, Smoky Mountain Service Dog, Brain Injury Service, Southwest Virginia, Salem VA, the VA in general, working the VA. And I will say this, the VA is the only insurance plan that has robust caregiver resources, which is a role model to every other commercial Medicaid, Medicare. It is a role model program. And so at least it's a good place to start. So just want to give shout out to these folks. I normally don't do that, but I really feel strongly that we need to do that, especially this. And thank you so much because you all are heroes caring for heroes. And I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, guys, until the next time, we will see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, friends, that's a wrap on this week's confession. Again, thank you so much for listening. But before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and tell your friends about the Confessions podcast. Don't forget to visit our website to sign up for our newsletter. You'll also find the video recording of all of our episodes on the Confessions website and our YouTube channel. Don't worry, all the details are included in the show notes below. We'll see you next Tuesday when we come together to confess again. Till then, take care of you. Okay, let's talk disclaimers. You may be surprised to find out, but we are not medical professionals and are not providing any medical advice. If you have any medical questions, we recommend that you talk with a medical professional of your choice. As always, my sisters and I at Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver have taken care in selecting the speakers, but the opinions of our speakers are theirs alone. The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted and no part can be reproduced without the express written consent of the Sisterhood of Care, LLC. Thank you for listening to the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast.